Welcome to another episode. It's been a while. I've been away in Florida on my annual trip to obviously Halloween Horror Nights and the surrounding areas. But today we're going to be looking at the good, the bad and the ugly from Halloween Horror Nights 28. So join me and let's have a look at the list. So let's start off with the good of the event. There is quite a lot of good things to cover because this year I think has been one of the strongest years that Halloween Horror Nights has produced. Ever since 25. 25 was the last good one. A couple of years later, this comes along. So all 10 houses are absolutely stunning. They have put so much effort into all of these houses and they look absolutely beautiful. Apart from one house, which we'll get into later, you probably know what that is. But all of these houses, I think, hit the mark and have succeeded expectations because I was going into this with a lot of the houses quite down low on the list and only a few at the top. But all of them were so hard to put into a top 10 list. They were kind of all in the middle of the road, like really good houses, really strong, all of them. And it was really hard to differentiate a clear winner of a house this year. Stranger Things was absolutely amazing for those that love the show. Seeds of Extinction really blew me away and it was at the bottom of my list when I went in and it was close to the top near the end of the event, and I couldn't believe that because that house was absolutely beautiful and had great scares. It was really good themed. Obviously the IP houses, Halloween was really good. I was really surprised by that. Trick or Treat was beautiful. It wasn't a scary house, but it was very, very well done. And I'll go into that a bit later on as well. All the other houses are really good. Slaughter Cinema, it wasn't scary. It was obviously the comedy house, but it wasn't that high up my list at the end of the event because it wasn't great for scares, but it was really good for theming and everything like that. But all the houses this year were absolutely amazing. I'm so happy with this event. So next we're going to talk about the Halloween Horror Nights Express Pass. I cannot recommend this enough. I had this for every day that I went to the event. I went 7 days and I had the Express Pass for 7 days of the event. And I did all houses. I went through 72 times in total, I think. I counted. That's a lot of times to go through houses, and I know you can probably get bored of them, repetitive, but I didn't. I love going through the houses, and I love seeing new things each time and getting scared in different ways. You can see where the scares are coming from, but I think Universal Express Pass is so worth it for the price, and I would do this again every year I go. Stranger Things was 120-minute waits, and I was waiting 7 minutes to walk in, and Halloween was a 50-minute wait one night and I waited 30 seconds. I think that's pretty good to me. That means you can maximise the time in the street to hang out there and also go see the other things like the Academy of Villains or just soak in Halloween Horror Nights 28. And I think Express Pass is well worth it and definitely get it if you're going next year. Next on the good list, we're going to talk about the scare actors. They don't get enough recognition for what they do and what they go through. These guys are out there from 6 o'clock in the evening till 2 a.m. in the morning, 45-minute periods of scaring, and that must take its toll because I would be just so worn down by doing the same scare, especially if you're in a house, every 30 seconds repetitively, and then having a 45-minute break and working those long hours. Out in the streets, it's probably better for you because you can do different scares and different things and you see different people. But they do not get enough recognition. There's so many good characters this year, especially in Vamp. Trisha White, the reporter, and Larry, the cameraman. They are lovely characters, and I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing them in years to come. The Killer Clown Scare Zone, amazing costumes. They've done that very well, and it was really fun zone to walk through. All the costumes for this year's event were absolutely amazing as well, especially in the Harvest and Twisted traditions. Even though they're not my favourite scare zones, but the actual set design and the costumes were amazing. But yeah, the scare actors were really on point this year. I was really happy with them all. Like I said, they don't give enough recognition of what they do, and it must be so hard for them. But I applaud them, and I'm so happy that they are there giving us all the scares every year. Next on the good list is a weird one's probably not on most people's lists, but it's for the house ops and security guys. They do a wonderful job at Halloween Horror Nights, making sure everyone is safe and making sure that there is no trouble and making sure the event runs smoothly. The organisation of this must be a massive undertaking, and they do it so well. And I'm so pleased that they are there, and I'm so thankful for them, because I've heard stories of scare actors and they get punched, they get molested sometimes, and they get just called names. And if the house ops and security was not there, I would just, if I was a scare actor, I would just leave. But thank God they are there to keep everyone safe. And I went on the Unmasking the Horror tour, and I'll talk about that another time. But my guide was lovely, he was amazing. He used to be a scare actor, and he told us loads of stories about scare actors that got abused and things like that. And in the houses, they make it easy exits for scare actors. So if something like that does happen, they can quickly escape, tell a security member, and at the end of the house, they can get the guest that was involved. I saw it a few times with guests acting a bit dumb and a bit stupid towards the scare actors, and they were removed from the park. And I cannot thank the house op security enough. I know it's a bit of a pain when you're in the house and you go through a scene and you see someone that's not meant to be in that scene, like a house ops or security member. But just remember that they are there for a reason, and it is for safety of the scare actors. And I thank them a lot for this year, because I don't like when scare actors get abused. Howl-O-Scream need to take a leaf out of Halloween Horror Nights book. I went there and I saw scare actors being shouted at. I saw them being sworn at, and I was not happy with it. There was no house ops in the rooms or security outside. They were just getting abused, and it was horrible. So Howl-O-Scream, you've got to up your game, because that was disgusting what I saw when I went to your event, and I will not be returning next year. I was very disappointed. So next on my good list is the Simpsons Stay and Scream. A weird one I know to put on the list, but let me tell you, Stay and Scream is the way to go if you want to knock out a few houses before the rest of the crowd gets in. Now, you have to get in the Universal before 4 o'clock because the park closes around 5. So get in there around 4, meander around the park a little bit and head into your Stay and Scream location. I chose Simpsons because that was the best area I did. I'll talk about Finnegan's in a bit. But Simpsons Stay and Scream was amazing. So you had the Duff Gardens, which was the bar. And then after the park closed, you had the Moe's Tavern, you had Krusty Burger, you had all them eateries to sit around in. You could sit indoors, you could sit outdoors, you can have a beer, you can have some food, and it was just really chilled. And I really liked it, that area of the park. And I was knocking out 4 houses before the park even opened. So that part sent you over to Slaughter Cinema first of all, and Blumhouse. Then you could go into Trick or Treat and Seeds. So you was knocking 4 of them out of the back corner of the park, and then you could go head over to the front of the park and deal with the crowds there. Simpsons Stay and Scream this year was the way to go, and I'll probably definitely be doing that in future years to come. I know it was annual pass holders last year for most of the time, but this year they've opened it up for everyone because we're missing a Stay and Scream pen, which was the Hello Kitty one. We're missing that one this year. So they've kept the Simpsons ones ongoing, which thank God, it was amazing. I highly recommend that for next year. There is a lot on the good list this year, and Academy of Villains is one of them. What an amazing show that was. It's great to see it in a theatre. It felt like a big show feel with all the pyrotechnics and everything like that. They did a lot more in that theatre, the Fear Factor live stage, than they could have done out in the streets. The production on that was astounding, and it was a really, really good sight to see. I love Academy of Villains, and I'm hoping they come back every year. But I'll talk about what my feelings were towards that as well in the next bit. But Academy of Villains was an amazing show. If you didn't see it, you missed out. Great dancing, great music, and good audience participation. And it's another good year for the villains. Next on my list is merchandise. What a year for merchandise it was for you Halloween Horror Nights fans. I could have walked away from that event spending hundreds and hundreds of my hard-earned dollars on merchandise. But wow, they did an amazing job this year. Everything there was really good. I would have bought everything if I could. Lots of good house t-shirts and lots of good inputs from Horror Inc. this year. So if you don't know what that is, you can create your own t-shirt based on maybe a house or a scare zone, anything like that. And you can have it personalised. So I got a few t-shirts from there. I got a Slaughter Cinema t-shirt, and I also got a Hawkins PE t-shirt with my name on. So it was very good this year for merchandise, I think. I like the lanyards, the different lanyards, so they're a collectible item for me. There's a lot of pins. The Trick or Treat merchandise was good. And I really like the Scare Zone laminated sheet this year for all of the Scare Zones. I thought that was great, a great addition. I wish they did that for the houses as well. I'd buy all of them and I'll have them up on my wall. One funny thing about the t-shirt this year, they did not put Blumhouse on the t-shirt. That is probably for a reason. They put The Harvest on there instead. It was a minor mistake. So I didn't buy a house t-shirt this year for that reason, because I think that was poor that they missed that off. But it's quite funny in a way that they didn't put Blumhouse on there. But we'll talk about that again in a minute. So merchandise this year, brilliant. I can't fault it. It was great. So I could go on all day about the goods of the event, and this is my last one of the goods because I don't want to eat into more of the time of this. But the last good of the event is going to be Unmasking the Horror. And that is a tour that you can do, a lights on tour of the houses. And again, I would so recommend this because you get so much information on this tour that you will not get anywhere else. I did the 6 house tour. You can do a 3 house or a 6 house. I opted for the 6 because I'm a Halloween Horror Nights nerd and I wanted to go through all of the houses with the lights on. Now the 6 houses that we did Stranger Things, Poltergeist, we did Seeds of Extinction, we did Trick or Treat, we did, what else did we do? What was it? Scary Tales and Carnival Graveyard. So they were pretty good houses to go through with the lights on. A lot of people wanted to go through Slaughter Cinema, but I can understand why they didn't because there are scenes in there to go through that are good, but they're not very well themed. But in the other houses, the theming in all of them were absolutely amazing. And it's so good to go through and see the lights on tour. Now, they have gotten rid of the photographs in every room, which they used to do. They only let you photograph certain rooms in each of the houses now, which I know a lot of people are down on, but it leaves the surprise for the other guests. I'm not too fussed by that. I was only there to see the stories of the houses and how they were built and all the great little details inside the houses. So that didn't really bother me, but what a great tour. My tour guide was amazing and he gave us loads of insight into the event and into the rooms of the houses and how they were created. And it's absolutely phenomenal to see how long it must take to do a house. 10 houses this year, like I said, they overdid it, if anything, but all of the houses are amazing. They didn't phone any of them in, and the Unmasking the Horror tour was worth all the money that I spent on it, and I highly recommend it. So now it's the bad turn for the event. There's not a few on my bad list, or the ugly list really, it's just a few niggly bits. So the first one is the scare zones. I love the scare zones, but let's face it, they're not scary at all. They're not called scare zones, they should just call them zones. Because for now, they're just photo ops for people. I know people like that, photo ops, but it kind of bugs me a little bit. You're meant to be out in the streets to get scared, and they're just not doing it, which is a bit of a shame. I love all the, obviously, set details and everything. It's great, and the characters, but they're just not scary in the slightest. There was only one scare zone that was scaring people, and that was the clowns over by The Simpsons. I saw a lot of people running, and I saw a kid cry, so that was quite funny. But in any other scare zones, I didn't get scared at all. I was pretty disappointed with a lot of them, especially, I mean, they were working pretty hard in the Harvest, but that wasn't scary either. And the Chucky zone was good. There was a few people trying to scare in there, but it was just funny other than that. But Vamp, there were not really any scares in that one. It was just good to see the show and everything like that. But we're going to talk about that in another video. But yeah, they're just not scary anymore, and I want them to bring that back. Please bring back our scare zones. Next on the bad list is the exit for Seeds of Extinction and Trick or Treat. Man, what a clusterfuck that was. That was horrible getting out of that house. Anytime you have to queue to get out of the house, it sucks. I was queuing more to get out of the houses than I was to get in them, and that is crazy to say. A lot of complaints were had over the exits to them because they all sort of, once you got Trick or Treat's house and then you got Seed's house, they all merged into one, and you're coming out of ET and all at the same time. It was a nightmare. They put some things in place in the second week or third week, I believe, which I was there for. It made it a little bit better with the flowing of the queue, but still, I was still queuing to get out of the house, and it was a pain. So if they can try and do something with that next year, that'll be something to build off of. But that was horrible getting out of the house. I was dreading coming out of there anytime I went through Trick or Treat and Seeds, because the exit to that was painful. Next on my list is Bill and Ted. There's no Bill and Ted this year. I know everyone was up in arms about it when they said the show was going away, and they had their farewell show last year, which was absolutely amazing. But no Bill and Ted this year, I feel, really hurt the event a bit, because there was no light relief that you could go to and just have a good time. I didn't understand most of the jokes because I'm from England and a lot of them were Americanized jokes, but I loved going in there and having a laugh and watching the dance routines and the music. And I love Bill and Ted because, you know, I was born in the 80s, so I just absolutely love Bill and Ted. I really hope they bring it back next year. Please bring it back, because I think Academy of Villains can work it outside in the streets. I think it works well. It doesn't need to be in the Fear Factor Theatre. I know their production value was really great this year, but I think having Academy out in the streets and then Bill and Ted back in the Fear Factor stage will give people something else to go to, because that part of the park, if you're not going to Academy of Villains or Blumhouse, is pretty much dead. But Bill and Ted sucked a lot of people in, and means you could get through some of the houses easier. And I just really missed Bill and Ted this year, because that show is a part of Halloween Horror Nights history for me, and I'm really sad that it's still not there. So please bring back our Bill and Ted. So the last on my bad list is the Finnegan Stay and Scream. Oh, another massive, massive clusterfuck that was. I did that Stay and Scream once, and I will not do it ever again. I used to use Finnegan's last year because it was well planned out, and I would do Hello Kitty as well sometimes last year. But now they've gotten rid of that. You're in Finnegan's. They have 2 different pens for you to go to Stranger Things. So people are queuing from 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it doesn't open till 6. So I don't really understand queuing for 2 hours before the event opens to go to one house where you're going to have to wait in probably another half hour to even get in the house, when you can go to Simpsons and knock out 4 houses in the time the event opens. But Finnegan's Stay and Scream was horrible this year. It was a nightmare. There were just so many people in there, obviously all going to Stranger Things. Obviously you could go to Poltergeist afterwards if you wanted to, but that was just horrible. Why are you waiting 2 hours to go into a house that has a 2-hour wait on a normal night anyway? What is the point in that? I know you can get some food and drinks, but Finnegan's is just rams. I'd rather go to Simpsons and just chill out at Krusty Burger, have a beer, or go over to the Duff Brewery. But Finnegan's Stay and Scream, please change that next year, because that was horrible. I'm not going to Finnegan's, and if it's like that next year, it was painful. So now we're getting on to the ugly portion of the list. There is only 2 things on this, so it's not all bad. The first thing is park guests. I know it's really bad to say. There's only a small minority of people. So people that use their flash, people that get in the scare actors' faces and try and be funny, people that are in the houses and like ruin it for everyone else. If you're going into a house and that person only gets 1 shot at that house and you ruin it for them, you're a dick. So please do not do that for other people. Be mindful of other guests that have paid just as much money as you have to get into the event. I know with Hollywood they don't allow alcoholic beverages, and I think in a way Florida should do that, but it will kind of take away from the event. I can go to the event, have a couple of beers, have a good time, have a laugh, and not be a knob. But some people just go there to just be a dickhead and ruin it for other people is just stupid. So please do not do that at the event. I hate to see it. And you only get kicked out of the park, and I just laugh at you for that because you look like a total wanker. But please do not be a dick to anyone at the event, and be mindful of other guests because they are fans like you and that want to go and have a good time. And if you ruin their evening, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. They might not want to go to Halloween Horror Nights again. Also, people who use their flash. You don't need a flash, okay? Your phones are good these days, so you do not need a flash in these zones because your phone can compensate for it. If you use a flash, you're a dickhead because these scare actors are out there. Remember them, they're out there scaring. They don't want a flash in their face every time they walk around. The amount of times that people were getting told to not use their flash by the ops and people was just astounding to me. I was standing in the zone one time and every 30 seconds, no flash, no flash, no flash, no flash. And you think people would take notice of it, but they really don't. So please don't use your flash. Your phone is good enough, I promise you. So that is pretty much it for the ugly side of the guests. Don't be a dick, don't use your flash, don't get too drunk and be annoying, and don't get kicked out of the event. There's only simple rules, but please abide by them. And the last thing on the list for this year, 2018, on the ugly side is the horrors of Blumhouse. What a fucking shit house this was. I hated this house. Literally, there's only 9 houses for me this year because Blumhouse is shit. I feel sorry for the scare actors because they did the best with what they had, but this house was terrible. It was even worse than the first Horrors of Blumhouse. Please, please, please do not do another Blumhouse house next year because I will not be going. I gave it a chance. I went through it a couple of times, and each time I was like, fuck this house. I'm not doing this house again. It was so repetitive in the first part with Happy Death Day. You'd going through the same scenes, and then you'd go through the Purge, and I didn't recognise anything from the first Purge. It was just people with masks on trying to scare you. It was just shit. Poor house. It was probably the worst house I've ever been in at Halloween Horror Nights, and that's saying something. So it was so bad they didn't even put it on a t-shirt. Like I said earlier, they probably thought, oh, this house is rubbish, we're not going to put it on there. We don't even want to be associated with Horrors of Blumhouse. I love Blumhouse. I love the films and everything like that, but equating it to a house doesn't work. It hasn't worked for the past 2 years. So please don't do it again because that was ugly house. And everyone that was coming out of the house was saying how rubbish it was and how disappointed they was. It wasn't scary. Obviously the scare actors tried, and I feel so sorry for them. Imagine being casted in the Horrors of Blumhouse and you'd be like, oh, fuck me. But no, Horrors of Blumhouse, shit, ugly, bottom of the list. Do not put it in next year, please. And that does it for the good, the bad and the ugly from Halloween Horror Nights 28. Not many bad or ugly things to go off of. A lot of good stuff this year. Like I said, I think it's the best year they've had in a while. Obviously 25 was a hard one to beat, but I think this one may have beaten it. The 10 houses, or 9 for me, were all amazing. And like I said, it was hard to group them. The scare zones were good, albeit not scary. Set design and creation was amazing this year. And all in all, a really, really good year for Halloween Horror Nights, I think. A lot of people come in for Stranger Things, obviously. I saw the massive crowds for that. But Stranger Things 2 next year, looks like. And in Slaughter Cinema, I'll go through that in another video. It looks like a nod to another house maybe returning, The Hive. There was a trailer for The Hive 2. So we're looking at that in the future. Vamp maybe coming back for a return, because I think that was a very, very strong scare zone this year for a lot of people. And I heard reports coming out of the best house and the best scare zone this year. Best house was Stranger Things. I think that's a lot to do with obviously the teenage audience that are coming here only to do Stranger Things. For me, I think Seeds was a very, very strong house this year. Also along with Poltergeist, amazing house. Scare Zone of the Year was Chucky, which I was quite surprised about, because I think Vamp would have got that with the amount of characters and everything that went on in that Scare Zone. But happy for Chucky Scare Zone to get a little recognition. It was a good zone to go through, and good to see the Chucky show. It was quite repetitive. But yet again, I'm going to talk about that in a video that I'm going to do this week, later on this week, about the scare zones. But all in all, a really good year. If there's anything that I've missed from the list, please let me know. If there's anything else on your lists, write in the comments. But I had such a good year this year. Good year. I'm really looking forward to next year already. But Halloween Horror Nights 28, good year for me. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time, guys.